a little science fiction-y stuff, not my usual kind of book, but Alex Attal's Revolution by Darren Campo. Starts with some quotes. Sometimes we look for great wealth to save us, a great power to save us, or great ideas to save us, when all we need is a piece of string. Bill Moyers. That's not always easy to find, but it's nice to have someone who can give you a clue. Joseph Campbell. And the contents page, we'll start with Chapter 1, The Kidnapping of Alex Attal. Chapter 1, The Kidnapping of Alex Attal. The most upsetting thing to Alex Attal about being kidnapped was that his abductors left him sleeping on his face for 30 hours. His kidnapping was going to be big news, and now he'd be all over the nets looking old and dumb. What an inconsiderate abduction, not like before. The first time Alex was kidnapped, he was 7 years old and still a genius. Now that had been a first-class kidnapping. So subtle it took him weeks to realize he was a prisoner. But now it seemed everyone knew the mega IQ of his childhood had declined. Now he is just a reclusive 17-year-old celebrity scientist, reluctant to use the few leftover magic thoughts from his youth to help the war effort. So, on the day the Second War with the Harvesters came, Alex Attal was not really surprised at waking in an empty stateroom aboard an interplanetary warship he didn't remember boarding. He wasn't surprised that he'd been kidnapped. Everyone had known he wouldn't go out there and fight, so they had just frozen him and sent him off. Probably sent him off to find that 300-year-old man on Pluto. Still, Alex Attal, though only a teenager, held the rank of admiral, and he intended to get some answers just as soon as he was fully resurrected. But the ship already knew he was awake. "Good morning, Admiral Attal. You must place your breakfast order immediately. The ship will be destroyed in 14 minutes. The computer had a refined and smooth masculine voice, unusual for an array warship, where years of research had proven a stern female voice elicited higher levels of attention and responsiveness. Destroyed breakfast. Situation, Admiral Attal, still flat on his stomach, managed to mumble. We are being pursued by a Harvester Reaper class attacker, the gentlemanly voice answered, based on 700 previous encounters, and the Reaper's current trajectory will intercept and destroy the ship in 13 minutes. You must place your breakfast order now. Certain foods take more than 13 minutes to prepare, and this ship is unable to prepare food once it is destroyed. You must also include an appropriate amount of time to eat, as human physiology is such that mastication and digestion are impossible after death." Was this warship babying him? It might be well known that he was no longer a prodigy, but this was going too far, really. Alex Attal slowly sat up on his warm blue mat and tried to stand. His legs didn't work yet. "I don't want food now. What ship is this, and where are we going, and who's in command?" This is the Array warship Cronus, located 470 million kilometers sunward, planetary plane. Destination coordinates are restricted. This vessel is in the command of Array Captain Odessa, House of Nations identification number 4488. Skipping breakfast is a violation of Cronus Operations Regulation 4B. A copy of the Operations Regulations Manual is available in Crew Directory. Captain Odessa. Well, that explained the ship's adamant fixation on eating. "I don't want to eat. How did I get here?" That information is not available. The captain will be notified of your refusal to eat breakfast, and an official censure will be entered in your quarterly performance appraisal unless a waiver is granted by Dr. Kekes. Is the captain on the bridge? Captain Odessa is on the bridge. A bridge buffet is available, but at the moment it does not have the recommended wake-up foods available. Today's menu includes a miso broth served at 98 degrees Celsius, a 17-kilogram honey-glazed Virginia ham. Side note, sorry about the noise in the background. I need to clean my coffee pot, so I'm just running water through it, kind of like making tea, like hot water. It should be quiet soon. Anyway, end of side note. The computer droned on like a monotonous maitre d' while Alex Tatel tried to stand. It generally took an hour to recover fully from stasis sleep, and at the moment the Admiral's legs weren't about to do any lifting. Just as he resigned himself to dragging his body to the bridge so that he could save the ship, the computer said something in the middle of its waiter act. Scored tips in a cranberry puree. The mat upon which you are sitting may be used for transportation. For dessert, apple fritters with simulated Macintosh, Golden Delicious, Granny Smith, and 13 minutes to save the ship. Someone could have woken him sooner. Alex Tatel activated the mat and floated off to the bridge. As he was exiting the stateroom, the lights suddenly went out. Eating a bowl of piping hot broth, standing while her ship was under attack, was no problem for the well-balanced Captain Odessa. She did not stand with a cat-like balance. It was more like the balance of a brick wall, not at all shaken by the pitching and heaving of her vessel. What irritated Captain Odessa, as she stood with the warm bowl in one hand, watching the other ship race after hers, her own death and destruction imminent, was that her soup was bland. If she'd said it once, she'd said it 1,000 times. Ship air pressure dulled the senses, and the bridge crew of an interplanetary warship should not have to suffer poorly seasoned food. It was a distraction, particularly in the middle of a battle. The crew had already raised their eyebrows when she insisted hot soup be on the bridge during the battle. Captain Odessa had made a rare try at leniency. If not hot soup, then how about gazpacho? The crew had stared at her, perhaps speechless because she was discussing their menu while being fired upon. Captain Odessa ran out of patience and made her request for hot soup in order. Inedible. Placing the bowl on her command panel, she moved on to the apple fritters. Somewhere on the velocity curve she was studying, another vessel shot toward hers in hot pursuit, and she imagined what her counterpart on that vessel might be eating. Fused hydrogen atoms, dark matter, roast pork. Who knew? She'd take bets that it looked none too pretty. But the fact remained that the other ship was gaining on them, and Captain Odessa could not find the extra power she needed to make her escape. She slammed her fist down. The plate of apple fritters bounced off the console. Captain Odessa stuck her finger at the system map and said, "Vice Captain, confirm that the command program is displaying our correct acceleration curve." "Confirmed," answered the Vice Captain without hesitation. "Well, I'll be damned. Where's that power going?" the Captain asked. "Maybe you ate it," sniped Commander June Mary, a 90-year-old woman from New Africa on Venus. She swiveled around in her chair, a mug of lemon tea in hand, and took a quick slurp. "The command program is hiding the power," the Vice Captain said quickly, before Captain Odessa could respond to June Mary. Odessa shook her head. "I've never heard of such a thing, not in all my life. Make your actions quicker, people. Act smartly. Damn it, my fritters are on the floor." Odessa tapped a code into her console, an instruction that would remove the drug Tranix from the air. Her higher-ups might not approve of her covertly treating the crew's anxieties with airborne opiates, but she didn't need her people at the switch frozen by stage fright. The crew should have adjusted to their dire situation by now, and Captain Odessa needed them sharp for the imminent battle. She entered another instruction that doubled the parts per thousand of kaolin in the air, a drug that stimulated the brain's axons and dendrites, boosting neurotransmitter speed. Looking up, the captain vaguely hoped to see her crew transformed into an army of instant geniuses. Instead, her always critical captain's eye saw a bunch of slack-jawed lollygags moving their carcasses to and fro. "Geniuses they ain't," she said to herself. Not fully trusting her executive officer's calculations, Odessa ran her own series. The computer reported that of 100% variable power available to her, 0.93% was being held back for, quote, priority command reserve, end quote, a notation that could only be made by the captain or an officer of higher rank. Since she was the only one on board with the authority to reserve drive power for any operation, the command program may have misunderstood a previous minor instruction. Unfortunately, she did not have time to trace her every query in the past 30 hours. By her own calculations, that extra power was vital to their escape. This is the captain. Everyone immediately don pressure suits. I am terminating all ambient power and climate control in 30 seconds. This is the captain. Vice Captain Horace Whitaker pointed to a secondary display on which a flashing schematic of the ship was modeled. Wait, Captain, we've got it. The energy diversion. Stateroom A is fully powered and is running an active stasis program. Captain Odessa's expression changed from dour to hyper-alert. Who the hell is in there? No one can get in there. Vice Captain Whitaker read his display. Stateroom A is occupied by a special envoy from Array. Boarding orders are from Fleet Admiral Sivo, and for some reason the command program was instructed to hide the transfer and the orders from you until launch plus 30 hours. Then the vice captain looked up at Odessa, his face stretched in either surprise or fear. Captain, it says that Fleet Admiral Sivo sent the envoy here for your annual performance appraisal. Odessa stood quietly for a moment on the dimly lit bridge. Normally, the bridge of an Array ship was brightly lit with a full spectrum of white light, which originated from sources positioned to optimize crew performance, maintain circadian rhythms, eliminate eye fatigue, stimulate the body's photoreceptors, prevent space depression, and generally maintain an upbeat atmosphere. Each day at 1200, 1 hour of ultraviolet was mixed into the standard lighting to ensure the crew would get enough naturally produced vitamin D. But today, Captain Odessa had turned off, quote-unquote, all that fancy foolishness on the bridge as well as throughout the ship and channeled the extra power to the ship's drive. Now, the bridge of the Cronus was lit by one blazing ray of amber emergency lighting from a source perched high above the command arch. The light struck Captain Odessa's round face and tightly pulled back red hair at sharp angles. The effect made her look savage. A performance appraisal in the middle of a war? Fleet Admiral Sivo needs to be killed, salted, and eaten. Immediately suspend all variable power to Stateroom A, Captain Odessa huffed, and turn off the damn lights in there. Completed, said the ship. Someone spoke. Captain Odessa held her hand up for silence. She tilted her head, sniffed the air a bit, testing it for some minute alteration. She gave one curt nod of her head. All right, we've got that extra power. Spin up to max, restock the buffet. Captain, I've got a definite lock on the Reaper vessel, Vice Captain Whitaker said. How far? 4,000 kilometers astern and closing. Closing? The vice captain said, yes, sir. The extra power did not allow us max spin up. Even if we shut everything off and add all our fixed power to the variable power, we will not be able to attain target velocity. Captain, the ship was simply not released from the previous battle at the optimal position. Captain Odessa sat in her command seat. Well, there was nothing else she could do. They would be forced to fight. She had a few evasive maneuvers the harvesters hadn't seen. Maybe if they survived the initial attack, the Cronus could get a shot in. But there was scarcely a chance they could win. A Reaper sliced Array ships in half at twice the reach of any Array weapon, as had been the fate of the rest of Array's fleet. A wave of nervous chatter washed through the bridge crew, then subsided into silence. The crew knew the odds against them. In the earlier battle, they had watched their fellow officers die anonymously aboard ships that only appeared as specks on flashing displays. The crew had accepted their imminent demise and braced as they prepared to launch what little they had left at the attacking Reapers. But then a message had been received from the chief executive of the House of Nations, Speaker Madeline Spell. The message was authenticated. Their ship, the Cronus, one of the last intact, had been ordered to withdraw to a faraway set of coordinates. One lone Reaper pursued them. Escape seemed possible. The crew, having accepted death, had now received their lives back. Accepting death a second time around was worse. A person could only take so much in a day. Captain Odessa eyed the food that was reappearing at the buffet. She intended to go down with a full stomach. How long, Vice Captain? 8 minutes. The ship posted the intercept time on her panel before Vice Captain Horace Whitaker could answer. 8 minutes, Captain. A disheveled young man riding a medical mat floated onto the bridge. He looked drowsy as he nervously swept a few strands of mousy brown hair away from his eyes. But there was no mistaking the Admiral's insignia on the boy's jacket. Odessa jumped up at the sight of him. Admiral Detail, why wasn't I informed that you were on board? I don't know, he snapped. I don't remember coming aboard. I just woke up in the stateroom, then somebody turned the lights off. Captain Odessa quickly regained what little composure she had lost. Well, you certainly are not on the manifest, and you don't remember boarding. Are you saying you were shanghaied? Admiral Detail frowned. What's shanghaied? Having been kidnapped, usually by drugging, for service aboard a ship. Alex rolled his eyes. Whatever. Are you up to date on our situation? Captain Odessa asked. Admiral Detail nodded. Then the ship said in a tattletale tone, Captain, Admiral Alexander Detail has not eaten breakfast. Suddenly, the Cronus was rocked by a tremendous blast. Admiral Detail fell from his mat and landed on his legs, which crumpled under him. What happened, Mr. Whitaker? Captain Odessa demanded. Whitaker frantically scanned his display. I don't have anything. The Reaper is still out of range. I don't know what it was. Lieutenant IYTT, I don't know how to say it, ran onto the bridge. Operations reports that we struck a mine. Odessa called up a detailed display of their trajectory. They must have sent a minefield ahead of us. Why didn't we detect those mines passing us, Mr. Whitaker? Passed us much faster than I don't even know what drove them. Recommend I'll stop immediately. How much time does that give us until the Reaper catches up? I don't know, 6 minutes, but we're going to hit another mine if we don't. I'll stop, ordered Captain Odessa. A low hum filled the bridge as the ship's Q field dampened the inertia of their sudden deceleration. All stop, reported Lieutenant IYTT. All stop confirmed, Whitaker said. A voice came from the floor. Could someone help me stand? Commander June Mary went over to Admiral Detail and heaved him up against an interface panel. Might just as well get back down on the floor and say a prayer, June Mary said. I mean, let's be for real now. Those boys are about to put a hurting on us. Detail grimaced. Captain, transfer access to the ship's command program to me. What? Captain Odessa asked incredulously. I need access to the ship's command program. Why? Too much to explain. Odessa shook her head. Certainly not. I'd have to be dead before I let someone else edit mission command. Captain, as an admiral of Array, I order you to transfer access to the ship's command program to me, now. Captain Odessa's nostrils flared. Under the House of Nations Wartime Act, I have autonomy within the mission parameters while commanding my ship. I do not recognize your authority to issue orders here. Alex Detail stood firm. Captain, you don't have a clue how to save this ship, but I do. You're not afraid of dying, but I am. So I need to run a command program, and the computer will not accept it unless I personally order it, and I can't do that without command. Captain Odessa hissed like a cat, more to herself than anyone else, then quietly said, You have 10 seconds to convince me and my senior officers. I wrote an evasion program that jumps a ship somewhere else when it is fired on, Detail stated. Lovely. Perhaps you can follow that up with a card trick. Please, Admiral, we all know that you are not the genius you were as a child. Odessa looked around for a morsel of food. She found some finger sandwiches next to a console. I have 80 permutations of particle beam. I have 70 high-level evasive maneuvers. I have a massive ferromagnetizer that can target key enemy systems and undo closed molecular chains to create aligned dipoles. Combined, they give us an estimated 6% survival rate. That's dismal, Detail said. The computer is always conservative. Commander June Mary wagged her finger at Captain Odessa. Oh, come on now, let the boy have a go at it. I mean, he shows up here from nowhere. I say, if this isn't the Lord delivering us a miracle, then I don't know what. Those harvesters have been on my third nerve long enough. Admiral has my vote. I hereby grant access to the command program to Admiral Detail. Commander's authorization, star, or asterisk. The audio mute stopped the sound waves coming from June Mary's mouth from traveling farther than the ship needed to read them. Authorization accepted, the ship reported. What about you? Captain Odessa asked her vice captain. Horace Whittaker studied his captain's face. He wasn't used to going against her, and he appeared to understand that this was not to her liking. But he was also accustomed to making split decisions, and they'd run out of options. I concur with the Admiral's request. Vice Captain's authorization, star. Odessa huffed and then spoke crisply, hotly. Very well. Computer, transfer command program access to Admiral Alexander Detail. Captain's authorization, star. Alex Detail stuck his hand into a display and allowed the computer to check his genetic imprint. Access to array mission orders and command program has been transferred to Admiral Alexander Detail, the ship calmly informed them. Detail spoke swiftly. Access my files and load program catbox into high priority processing area. Clear all necessary memory and reserve all required processing power. Wipe original command program if necessary. Loading program, priorities set. The Cronus matched program specifications. Then the nice old man's ship voice gave him some attitude. Admiral Detail, it is not necessary to instruct the ship in process optimization. Odessa sat beside her command seat and looked at the blur of the approaching Reaper on a display. Tell me how this works. Detail was back on his floating mat, which he maneuvered over to the command seat, where the mat politely deposited him. Listen, I might not have the time to finish, he said, pointing to the approaching blur, so don't interrupt. My program is activated once the ship detects offensive activity directed at it from another ship. It will send us into plank space, which will orient the ship to an appropriate combination of the fundamental constants of gravitational attraction, velocity of light, and quantum mechanics. Each of the ship's subatomic particles will exist on the level of the Planck scale, vibrate exactly 10 to the negative 33 centimeters every 10 to the negative 43 seconds. If that's how you say it, I don't know math stuff very well. Captain Odessa squeezed her lips together, annoyed, ready to rebuke with her legendary use of ancient vocabulary. Poppycock. Detail frowned. Look, it's all in the algorithm that controls the Q field. In Planck space, space-time and matter are different, and the laws of physics no longer obey general relativity. They obey quantum gravity. That allows a ship to fix the time scale in which the reduction of all possible events into different alternatives occurs. Under quantum gravity, we can see all possible alternatives of a given event. Under our own everyday general relativity, all possible alternatives of a given event are unstable and always collapse into one event, the reality we see around us. It's a very old theory, about as probable as an eggless souffle, Odessa said. Detail shook his head. The program waits for the ship to be fired on and recognizes that of a number of possible alternative geometries, a number that approaches infinity, at least two alternatives should be ship hit and ship not hit. The program will search for the ship not hit alternative, orient the ship's quantum field to that space-time geometry, then return the ship to a normal acceleration curve. After that, general relativity takes over and the alternative space-time geometries become unstable and collapse into the orientation the computer has chosen, ship not hit. Because there will be so many more alternatives that correspond to ship hit, it is highly likely that from their end of this, the Reaper will see the ship hit alternative space-time geometry. They'll see us get blown up, even if we aren't. So there. It's a good thing I'm here, Captain. I'd say this is your lucky day. Odessa stuck her nose in the air. What were the test stats? Vice Captain Whittaker interrupted. Reaper will be within firing range in 2 minutes. Detail waved a hand at the captain. Odessa let loose a humorless laugh. You never tested it. You probably just finished coding the thing. My evasion programs have saved your right plenty of times before, Alex said. Why don't you try thank you that you're all alive? Odessa frowned. That was when you were young and ingenious. You are no longer the savior of the world you were as a child. The captain turned her attention to another. Lieutenant, IYTT, make your damage report smartly. It's not much of an analysis, the lieutenant responded. I don't think we actually hit the mine. Rather, our Q field was interrupted off the starboard where it extends furthest. I'm guessing antimatter? Well, now, dearie, that's all very interesting. Captain Odessa sniped. I said smartly. Now, answer my question. No damage, Captain. The dim emergency lighting on the bridge was suddenly replaced by the normal brightness. Optimal lighting automatically reestablished as the battle situation approached. Captain Odessa tapped her comm. This is the captain. Prepare for battle engagement. Harvesters closing to 1,000 kilometers, Vice Captain Whitaker reported. The Reaper is within firing range. There is a polarity shift in there. Whitaker never finished his sentence. A tightly focused antimatter beam neatly sliced through the hull and past a nearby display in front of Whitaker. The antimatter disturbance caused the left side of Whitaker's upper torso and head to erupt as the positive protons of his matter fought with the negative protons of the Reaper beam. Air tore through the bridge and pushed anything not bolted down out into space. The ship's climate controls fought frantically to replace escaping air, and the resulting vortex made it increasingly difficult for Captain Odessa to hold on to her chair. Through the blur of tears and whipping wind, Odessa could see the harvester ship's black glow. She dug and clawed at the seat arm, but the rush of air was too strong. It ripped her away and sent her sailing. She bounced off the buffet where she hit the huge soup tureen, hot soup scalding her arm before she entered the cold vacuum space. As she was blown out, surrounded by bits of food, Odessa's head banged against a large slice of hull. Consciousness began to rejoin consciousness as Captain Odessa faded into death. But not completely, because now she was back on the bridge. There is a polarity shift in there, said Horace Whitaker, who was somehow whole again. Captain Odessa had felt herself fly through the hole, felt her head break against the torn hole. She had seen Whitaker's head burst. Remnants of the incident seemed evident in the tattered surroundings. Nonetheless, here she was, back by her seat in a completely whole bridge and very alive. Vice Captain seemed to be superimposed over the previous carnage and wreckage. The captain thought she could pick out several different scenarios playing out before her, with the dominant scene always the one in which she felt herself to be actually involved. Once again, the antimatter beam sliced through the hull, Whitaker's head burst, and Odessa was blown into space. Again, just before death, Captain Odessa found herself back on the bridge. Horace Whitaker, for the third time, said, There is a polarity shift. Out of the corner of her eye, Odessa saw a status report scroll blurrily across her display. Program, Catbox, author, Admiral Alexander Detail, Array Science, status processing, runtime to date, 0000.00001 plus S. Keyword summary, quantum field reorientation activity, ship hit, ship hit, ship hit, ship hit, ship hit, ship not hit, ship 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 not hit, ship 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 not hit, ship hit, ship hit. Captain Odessa reasoned that the non-relativistic nature of Detail's program had caused them to get stuck in a time loop, which seemed like nonsense, but she was a military officer, not a scientist. Whatever the matter was, Captain Odessa thought as she was swept through the breached hull yet again, this situation was terrifying and irritating. She tried to talk to Alex next time she found herself in her original position. But when she returned to the beginning of the time loop, she was not in her original position. Rather, she was in the command seat, and Alex was nowhere in sight. So this was not a static loop. Things changed somewhat each time. Whitaker was in the same spot, and she was prepared to watch his head explode. She was prepared to be blown into space again, bounced off her beloved buffet no less. Intolerable. She eyed the display. Ship not hit, ship hit, ship not hit, ship hit, ship hit, ship hit, ship hit, ship hit, ship not hit. Just as she was about to be swept away, Captain Odessa reached for her display, stretched as her grip was loosened, and the tearing wind reached that point when it always took her, and with her final strength touched cancel. The program froze. Activity, ship not hit, and all was quiet. Well, heaven loves God, I already drank this, June Mary said as she eyed her mug of tea. Captain Odessa stood and carefully approached June Mary's desk. The cup was full. Where's Admiral Detail? Odessa moved behind a console and found Detail lying on the floor beside the floating mat. Lieutenant IYTT rushed onto the bridge and stopped fast. June Mary helped Detail stand. Looks like the program put us back a few minutes before the attack, Detail said. The bridge crew all spoke at once, but Captain Odessa silenced them with a flash of her eyes. Whitaker, what's the status of the harvester ship? Whitaker was intently studying the display, one hand against his head as if it might explode again. They were on a reverse course just a few seconds ago, but now they appear to have spotted us and are once again in pursuit. That would be consistent with them having witnessed our destruction, Detail said. Odessa nodded. Face Captain, how long until they reach us again? Horace Whitaker hesitated, then took a deep breath. They won't reach us at all, Captain. Whitaker transferred the acceleration curve to the main display. For some reason, the Cronus is now traveling 20 times faster than before. The Solar-class space vessel Cronus was the latest in array spaceliner technology, chartered as part of the Continuing Strategic Defense Initiative, a name borrowed from Earth's first attempt at warfare conducted outside the planet's atmosphere. From the 21st century to the year 2220, building interplanetary warships would have been unthinkable. Most of Earth's space development resources were spent terraforming its neighbors. The 100-year plan to cool down Venus and warm up Mars went 50 years over schedule, but population strain on natural resources demanded more habitable land. Priorities quickly changed during the year 2228 when the harvesters showed up far outside the solar system. Earth was successful in initiating contact, and the harvesters promptly replied, "We have come to remove your system's primary star." That was the extent of contact with the harvesters for 2 decades. As their ship approached the solar system, Earth continued to lob questions at them regarding their history, what they were doing, how long they had been aware of Earth, how many other species they knew of, what religious beliefs they held, and so forth. There was no response. Years were spent analyzing the message, "Come to remove your system's planetary star." Some scholars said it was a philosophical reference, that they would come for an exchange of knowledge. Others thought they were on their way to enlighten the poor creatures who lived on Earth, Venus, and Mars. Some speculated they were coming to abduct a major celebrity. The governments, however, believed that the harvesters were literally coming to take the sun. They responded with an activation of advanced weapons programs. Ships such as the Cronus were part of that new initiative. 21 years after the message was received, the main harvester vessel, a rotating hoop about twice the diameter of Earth, entered Sol system, approached the sun, and began, quote-unquote, harvesting it. Thanks to teams of nervous bureaucrats, there were ships in place to intercept the alien vessel. But the eventual war did not go well at all for the humans. The Harvester Ring Ship, as it had been dubbed, released a fleet of nasty little vessels that Earth inhabitants termed Reapers, which quickly cut down the massive array attack force. Earth prospects were grim. But then a 7-year-old boy named Alex Detail provided array defense with the card it needed. One day, Alex was playing with a piece of paper. He cut a strip off the paper and gave it a half twist, then connected the ends and formed a Mobius. What once had two sides now had only one. Fascinated that an entire dimension could be bypassed, he got the idea that communications could be sent virtually instantaneously in 2 dimensions rather than at light speed in 3-dimensional space. Using the Mobius principle, 3-dimensional communications could be converted to 2-dimensional communications, much like the way old analog signals were converted to digital. That would certainly give any fleet of warships a strategic advantage. A message could be sent from the safety of Earth to a ship at the sun instantly, rather than the 8 minutes it would take at light speed. An entire fleet could act as one, like a school of silverfish, turning and flashing about. Alex Tuttle queried the net regarding his device. After net intelligences told Alex 2-dimensional communication was only mathematically possible, he logged out and logged on under his father's executive account and asked the net to extrapolate from existing theoretical databases, and construct a plan to build such a device. Detail then downloaded the specifications to the GE Replication Center. His father received a bill for several times his yearly salary. The device that eventually showed up on Alex Tutell's doorstep didn't work at all, but of course, most new things did not work at first. Once he'd fiddled with it, he had a working prototype. News spread, and the design was quickly snatched up by Array, along with the 7-year-old Alex Tuttle. In parentheses, Array paid the overdue GE invoice, close parentheses. Once Tuttle instructed them on how to build more of his devices, dubbed MCOMs, they were placed on Array ships. Fleet response time was increased to such an extent that command programs could be run and adjusted instantaneously. Although Array weapons were inferior to Harvester weapons, the main Harvester ship and its fleet of Reaper vessels were sluggish compared to Earth ships. The Harvesters no longer had an effective offense, and their harvest was so interrupted that the large ring ship and its fleet of Reapers withdrew. Alex Tuttle became a hero and a very important person to Array. His athletic build and dark eyes were marketed to the public by Array as the prototypical hero mascot. Tuttle's ability to make the theoretically possible a reality gave Array the ability to keep a steady eye on the Harvester ship just outside the solar system, and the readiness to defend the system once again if need be. Now, 10 years later, that day had come. 4 Harvester ring ships had arrived and surrounded the sun. Earth could just barely protect the sun adequately from 1 Harvester ring ship, but certainly not 4. Array dispatched its fleet, but it was quickly pursued and cut down by a fleet of Reapers. This time, Array's superior response speed was no match for the sheer number of Reapers. After just a few hours, when defeat appeared imminent, a message was sent to the least damaged ship, a ship that had performed better than any other against the Reapers. The message was from Speaker Madeline Spell, and it was sent to the Array warship Cronus. The message said one thing: withdraw. It was followed by a set of destination coordinates that could only be decoded by the ship's captain. Captain Odessa. It was not luck that saved the Cronus from early destruction. Captain Odessa was well known for her service during the First Harvester War when, as a young vice captain, she relieved from duty several of her superior officers for, quote, indecisive strategic execution, end quote, during a critical Harvester battle. Captain Odessa then commandeered one of the first fleets outfitted with MCOMs and initiated a complex, swift, and devastating attack on the Harvesters. Now in her late 30s, the 5-foot Captain Odessa continued to strike fear into those around her with her intense glare and perpetually pursed lips. But for those who served under her, an odd characteristic stood out above all. She encouraged rampant consumption of food by her crew throughout the day. And if by chance a person was not hungry, then he or she should have a drink close to hand. The famous management theorist Tal Ben-Ari once asked Captain Odessa to describe her use of food in command situations. In his book, Odessa is quoted as saying, "I am not an emotionally giving commander. I do not think that is good for my crew, though ample mine is not a breast to rest your weary head on. However, I do concern myself with caring for those in my charge, and I do so by feeding them. It helps with all problems. If a member of my crew comes to me and says, 'Boo-hoo, I miss my lover,' I say, 'Eat something. It will fill the void.' If they say, 'Chatter, chatter, we are nervous about the upcoming mission,' I say, 'Have some cake.' I believe that food is a qualified substitute for love, security, self-confidence, fortitude, constancy, spiritual fulfillment, and so forth. By force-feeding my crew, I form a bond by providing for all the needs that may be missing in their lives." When Tal Ben-Ari asked if any of her crew suffered from obesity, Odessa shrugged, responding, "For some, a metabolic boost is recommended before joining my staff. Personally, I take no stimulants whatsoever, and look at me, I'm quite fit." It follows that the staff meeting held after the Harvester encounter was a 5-course fanfare. Odessa had no compunctions about speaking as she ate. Immediately after sitting down, she phoned the bridge and said, "Pilot, let me know when our coordinates read 772 by 30 by 7. Now let's begin. Vice Captain Whitaker, tell us the state of the Cronus." "Due to our excessive speed, we have lost 90% of our quantum field integrity. Admiral Detail's evasion program has left us with a limited amount of cruising time. When the quantum field reaches less than 2%, we must come to full stop or risk a hull breach from space debris. We have safely cleared the area that may have contained additional mines. A diagnostic of the hull has revealed that the left flank is severely warped, precisely at the spot where we were hit by the Reaper weapon." "We were never hit, not in this space-time," Alex Detail said. "Admiral, I believe that something of that space-time geometry is still in evidence here," Whitaker defended. His analysis: "This was a localized event, otherwise we would be in a completely different timeline in a completely different universe." Detail shrugged. "It didn't matter." "Vice Captain, where is the Reaper that attacked us?" Captain Odessa asked. "Approximately 372,000 kilometers astern. They will likely stop their pursuit when they realize they can't catch us." Mr. Whitaker activated a holo display directly above the center of the table. It showed in perfect detail the computer's record of the Reaper attack on the Cronus. The Reaper closes on the Cronus. A rust-colored beam originating from the Reaper is shot in the direction of the Cronus, at which time the Cronus disappears. We do not know exactly what is responsible for our 20-fold acceleration increase. I would conjecture that it is a result of our transition from quantum gravity to general relativity." "How long will our Q field hold at 10%? 3 days minimum, 6 max. At this speed, that will take us into the KUIPER, Kuiper belt. Then we're stuck for a few months while repairs are made." A 3-tone signal sounded, a message from the bridge pilot. "Captain, we are approaching the specified coordinates." "Pilot, make your heading 4 degrees aft by 2 degrees lateral," the captain said. "Yes, sir. Making my heading 4 degrees aft by 2 degrees lateral," the pilot confirmed. "Good. Factor our trajectory with the sidereal time of all forward planets and confirm our destination." There was a moment of silence. The pilot finished her calculations and replied, "We are now on a direct course to the planet Pluto." I just kind of always remember this book being this chapter of the book being a bit longer and confusing and stuff, but maybe because I've read it so many times. Oops. Stay tuned for the next chapter.